Indiana absolutely crushes Alabama in the Rose Bowl. They are running their way to the semifinals of the college football playoffs, baby. Hoosiers?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and college football. He is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. I'm your man, Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And oh my goodness, on the national stage, baby, in front of the entire country and the granddaddy of them all, Indiana absolutely crushes Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Final score 38-3. Yes, it is awesome. It is the greatest day we've ever seen.
Oh, man.
My goodness, Spencer, this was just a beat down from start to finish. The first couple of drives weren't pretty. Indiana scored, and it was over. It was Allen Iverson, done. Or Vince Carter, done. Over. It was just this was a total domination by Indiana over the SEC and Alabama in the Rose Bowl, my friend.
Yeah, it was. The SEC homer crowd is having a rough go of it today. It's a rough go of it. So here's my favorite stat. First glance at the box score after watching them just obliterate the Crimson Tide here. Indiana had two different running backs who individually ran for more yards than Alabama's entire team. Than the two guys on their own. Alabama went for 23 yards on the ground. Well, Alabama doesn't run the ball a lot. Okay. Well, certainly that means they threw the ball a lot. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean they tried to. That doesn't mean they were successful. 170 through the air. I don't know if there is a statistical area that you could look at in this game, Goins, and come to the realization that, well, Alabama was actually close. It just got away. No. Indiana just completely dismissed. Look, I thought this game would be closer because Alabama's got that find a way sort of mentality to them. It's been a Kalen DeBoer feature. Kalen DeBoer, I don't think since he's been a Power 4 head coach, or a head coach really, going back to his time at Fresno State, I don't think he's lost a game like this. I think this is the largest margin of defeat that he's had. This is a smattering on national television. The weather cleared up, and I thought that would help Alabama. Nope, it did not matter. That game could have been played in the rain, in the sun, the sleet, the snow, the hail. It could have been played in February. No one had won coming off a bye, and then Indiana won by 35. Look, my subconscious can't even handle this. Goins, I'm used to seeing Alabama do this sort of stuff, and Indiana just ran them off the field, literally and metaphorically. This was a coaching, personnel, execution mismatch across the board. Man,
it's incredible.
What even is Curt Cignetti, dude?
I mean, he is a dog. That's what he is a dog. Is Curt Cignetti. 38-3, Indiana wins. I picked 31-17, and I guess that was a little too disrespectful to the Indiana defense, who had Alabama's offense just in hell.
You hater.
I know.
You're a hater.
My bad. I'll take that. That's accountability on me. Indiana wins 38-3. We're going to break it down, talk about why this Indiana team is different, likes and dislikes, and a very intriguing matchup coming up in the semifinals. But look, we got another guy that wanted to hop in and talk about the fun. What's up, Brian Smith?
Oh, Indiana grad Brian Smith is here. Look at the smile on his face. If you haven't met Brian before, he's like the Grinch. Getting him to smile only happens when he's talking about high school film tape and when Indiana wins. Brian, you take it away.
I'm absolutely destroying Alabama fans on X right now. So this is I posted that Indiana was going to stomp him. I had over like 100 people reply saying I'm an idiot, all this. I can't even repeat some of the things that I've said back, but it's been a really good time with the retweets here in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having fun, man. I mean, we came into this game, right, talking about Indiana. This was the biggest game in the history of the program. And I understand that in less than 2 years, we have said that 5, 6, 7 different times. But this one was true. This was the Rose Bowl on the national stage in the college football playoffs, a round further than you made it a year ago. And you were playing the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're taking on the SEC. Ain't no way you can beat Alabama. We're too good. Guys, this was embarrassing. They said that on the national broadcasts. Our guy Kirk Herbstreit said this is embarrassing for Alabama and the SEC, and Indiana was the one to do it, and they did it in every facet of the game. Fernando Mendoza, in the few times he had to throw the football, looked incredible. The Hoosiers ran for more yards than Alabama had total yards in this football game, and the defense had them running around like crazy. I hate that Ty Simpson got banged up, took a heck of a hit, and of course had to go to the backup quarterback, but this was not close. I mean, this is a different brand of football we're watching right now from Indiana, guys, and it's truly remarkable to watch.
I think that if Ty Simpson had the opportunity to come back into a game that was within 10 points, he might have. I don't know for sure, but I think there was an element of that Alabama coaching staff saying, we don't need to ruin this kid's future. This is over. Let's get to the offseason and go make some adjustments, because that was such. Remember last year in the playoff? Like, I'm still struggling to wrap my head around all of this because it's Indiana, for goodness sake. Do you remember last year in the playoff how much flack the Hoosiers program took from everybody under the sun with a microphone, like buffoons such as myself? Not in this, I didn't say this, I'm just saying as an example. For losing by blowout fashion to Notre Dame. This was infinitely worse than that. Are we going to talk about how Alabama's a bunch of frauds that they shouldn't have been? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give Indiana their flowers and say Curt Cignetti might be the best coach I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Brian?
think it was going to go to that.
I don't think you can say anything higher than that, but I'll let you try.
I'll still give it to Saban. He's got 7 rings, but at the same time, he's Nick Saban's disciple, and he reminds me a lot of him in his style of play and how they physically beat up on you. By the way, with a handful of 4-star, yeah, that's a really good look.
Can you raise one eyebrow and not the other?
No, I mean,
there it is.
There it is. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good. That
looks like Emmanuel yesterday when he was talking to me about you. But anyway, it's a really impressive staff. I mean, everything they did, they just outcoached them. The execution was on a whole nother level. By the way, the ESPN vertical shots, like the line play, they're moving 300-pounders out of the way like nothing.
Yeah. And it started in the run game on that second drive.
I think people overlook Indiana was a finalist for the Joe Moore Award. All 3 finalists were in the college football, were in the Big Ten. By the way, 2 were in the college football playoff. And Iowa won. I understand that, and they're really good. But boy, that looked like the best offensive line in college football to me.
Yeah, there were a couple of times when Mendoza dropped back that Bama brought pressure and got home, and he was kind of scrambling around. How about Mendoza's legs? I tried to tell people about it, and people didn't want to talk about it. He looks goofy when he runs. They called him a baby giraffe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
But
baby giraffe comment.
Hey, my man got it done.
It's not pretty.
He got it done. That's all that matters. And Indiana just totally handles this game. Mendoza had 16 rushing yards. I'm not sure what the sack yardage was on that, but I mean, Indiana just had a game plan. They executed. The first round bye stuff is now gone, thankfully, to Indiana. And I do think that that's a legitimate thing. They were 0-6 coming into that game.
Yeah.
And Indiana may be an outlier here, but the Hoosiers showed, because of the staff, the players, and the standard that's in Bloomington, you could take a year off and they could show up and play like they did today, guys.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm just coming back to Curt Cignetti over and over again in my head, because just over the course of this season, look at the way that they have leveled up. Okay, beating Illinois in the manner in which you did, that was impressive. Illinois, good team, not a great team, but a good football team, and just utter domination. And then on game day at Autzen, where Dan Lanning had lost one other time in his first season as a head coach, you go in there and win. All of a sudden, it's, hey, Indiana #1 team. Hey, it could be. They certainly could. And they just kept building. And then they go to the Big Ten championship game. And this is the biggest game. And boom. And to your point, Jacob, it kept coming up because it kept being the case. Indiana kept playing the biggest game in the history of its program, and it just keeps winning them. And this has been one season. This hasn't been over the course of 3 or 4 years. This has been 1 year. I don't know who else to compare Curt Cignetti to. I don't think you could say Saban because Alabama won before Saban was there. Indiana's never won anything, ever. And now they're the best team in the country.
Brian, you're the longtime IU grad here, guy that has talked and watched Indiana football for quite some time.
He just called you old, Brian.
It's not true. I didn't.
He embraces it. That's too bad.
There's nothing you can do about that, Spencer.
Yeah, now I'm dead in the water.
Brian, you've watched this for a long time for Indiana football. That's been horrible. How do you feel, and kind of speak for the generation of yourself that has watched Indiana football not be good for so long, to watch a game like this today?
It's so dominant today. My dad, who is scared to text somebody because he can't do it right, texted me in the first quarter. That's how dominant it was.
That was it. They should have called the game right there. They should have known.
Indiana, the first year I really started watching football was 1984, and Indiana was 0-11. 0-11.
A goose egg.
Yikes.
I mean, it's
that's
just
epic.
Yeah, Indiana just had no ability to recruit top talent. Their coaching was okay. Had a few great players like Anthony Thompson, Dunbar, a few other guys, but just didn't have good teams. To see what they're doing right now, ironically, it's just true, is very Alabama-esque. That's just so ironic because the opponent today, and I'm not trying to poke at Alabama because that is the softest Alabama team that I've seen since before Saban was there.
Yeah.
That is 2006 Alabama right there, with multiple NFL offensive linemen going to the draft. And their rushing total for the game,
23
yards per carry,
23
yards. You stink. Indiana just slammed them in the face. They curb stomped them. Absolutely curb stomped them. And by the way, I'm going to continue to tweet while we do this because I'm having too much fun.
Brian's got receipts, baby. I love it.
I bookmarked a bunch. Oh, I did.
Good. And you know what? I hope every Indiana person, fan, parent, fan, roommate, player, coach, I hope everybody has receipts because people talk so bad about Indiana, not just Alabama fans, but SEC people and college football fans. Spencer, I'm sure you heard this as well. People they refuse to believe. And at what point do you buy in? Is this what it took? Was it this embarrassing beatdown of an SEC juggernaut for people to finally buy into Indiana? Maybe. You're going to gain some, not everybody. There'll still be, haters who are miserable and can't do it. But surely after beating Illinois the way you did, Iowa the way you did, Oregon the way you did, coming back and beating Penn State the way you did, continuing to hammer bad opponents, beating Ohio State, and then just absolutely destroying Alabama. How could you not? If you take off whatever blinders you have on, it's impossible not to believe in this.
I bet there are fans in West Lafayette that could find a way to not believe. Goins, I bet there are some that could find a way, but I don't think there is anything left for Indiana to prove, as crazy as this is, except to win the national championship. I mean, 2 different quarterbacks, 2 years. You realize the only teams that have beaten Curt Cignetti's Indiana Hoosiers were playing in the national championship game last year. Those are the only ones.
Yep.
I don't know how else to explain this. The coaching equivalent I go to as an Oregon guy, that think about how crazy this would be. What if Will Stein goes to Kentucky and goes 11-1 in his first year, makes the playoff, and then wins the SEC in 2027? That's the equivalent, isn't it? A basketball school with no history of winning football consistently that all of a sudden is just the best team in college football for a guy that most people hadn't heard of. I mean, I had because I cover FCS football in my other job, but this stuff is insane.
And weirdly enough, the Kentucky job might be easier to win at than the Indiana job in terms of where the programs are when the coach takes over. I mean, Indiana
possibly,
was literally not even winning FBS games. Kentucky's at least winning 6 games a year. They just finally moved on from Stoops, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like if Jake Dicker won the ACC next year, but that wouldn't be as impressive because that's not in the Big Ten or in the SEC, which I don't think either one is. I mean, I think the Big Ten is the best conference in college football. Like, Brian, am I nuts there?
I don't think you're nuts. It just depends on your barometer. The SEC is deeper, but it's not near as top heavy as it used to be. I don't know if SEC fans will ever accept that. I still see it.
I don't even know if the depth is there.
Well,
like, I didn't think this game would be as big of a blowout as it was. But Oklahoma and Alabama was a great game. It was really entertaining. But my number one takeaway after the game was, hey, I picked Oklahoma. I was wrong, but neither one of these teams is beating Indiana, which is correct.
That's exactly what I posted too.
And I just don't, I just don't think I can remember a time where we said that about one of the top teams in the SEC that they can't beat. Alabama's the runner-up in the SEC, and they are nowhere close to Indiana. Nowhere close.
Ole Miss played a very favorable schedule in the SEC this year. They're good. I still think they're good, but Oklahoma, I'll give them credit way to go 10-2 against a tough slate, but their offense stunk. And a very favorable schedule. Georgia kind of fought the way through. I think they're the best team in the SEC. Actually won it. They're the only one that I think is a legitimate contender. Tennessee didn't even beat a team with a winning record. Florida's terrible.
Brian, you might need to leave and come back here, bud. You're a little bugging and blurry right now. You might need to exit stage left and then re-enter stage right.
We'll see if he can pull it off. Hold on. Let's see if he can pull it off down there. Well, this seems like a good time to pay our bills and do what we're supposed to do and talk about our wonderful sponsors.
I was going to ask you that like 5 minutes ago. Like, are we taking a break?
Yeah, we probably should. We should probably take a break. Let's do that. We'll come back. We'll do likes and dislikes for folks who come in and talk on Locked On Hoosiers. You know how that rolls. Plus, we do get to talk about a intriguing matchup in the semifinals, plus the portal and recruiting with our man Brian. All that coming up on this Locked On crossover as Indiana takes down Alabama. All right, this Locked On crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. And Fridays feel different. That's tomorrow because basketball season is here, which I know it's crazy that we're talking basketball during this amazing football time. But FanDuel is making them even better Friday nights before the games tip off. FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame for a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Now, we can talk basketball, but I do think it's appropriate to talk a little football here, Spencer, with our folks at FanDuel because Indiana was a 7-point favorite. I said they were going to win by 10 plus. Oh, it closed to 7.5. Didn't matter. No. Were they favored by 35? Because that was the accurate line. And how?
Yeah, well, I've seen a line this year at 34.5. I don't think I've seen 35.5, but 34.5 I've seen, and Indiana covered.
Yes, by like 4 times they covered. Yeah. They covered a lot. And so now I want to look because we are going to talk about Indiana and Oregon. Ooh,
I know where you're going with this.
Early spreads, according to our friends at FanDuel. Spencer, would you like to guess? Early spreads without cheating, Indiana, Oregon in the semifinals.
Indiana minus 4.5.
Oh, nicely done. Nicely done. Indiana 4.5.
Oh!
At FanDuel.
That's the best. Done. That's the best bet thing I've said all year.
So if you agree or disagree, you can hop on with FanDuel right now and hop on with football, basketball, you name it. They have got it. With the NBA, college football, all of that on FanDuel. They're the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And speaking of Indiana and Oregon. If you're looking to make a little trip down to Atlanta, you can use our friends over at Game Time, because there really is nothing like college football season, right? Tailgating, packed out stadiums. The Rose Bowl was packed. We heard you Hoosier fans there, and being right in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments that you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, it can be a miserable process, but not with our friends at Game Time. That's why they give you the advantage back to the fans. The easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. So if you are planning on going to Atlanta, to Mercedes-Benz, hop on Game Time right now. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and if it's your first purchase, they're going to give you $20 off of that, okay? Use that. You can find views from your seat, all-in pricing, everything you need by going to Game Time, using the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. You can download the Game Time app today. All right, we're back on this live edition of Locked On Hoosiers, Locked On College Football. Brian, are you there, my friend? I think so. Maybe.
I am here.
Okay.
I'm just destroying people on Twitter.
Okay. Brian's just having a good time. He is, of course, the host of Locked On the Portal, our great podcast there. Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And Brian, I do want to come back to you and talk about the recruiting angle of this, as Indiana just destroys Alabama 38-3. It's a win in the college football playoff. It's a win in the Rose Bowl, and it's in dominating fashion over big bad Alabama. Can you put into words the recruiting bump that Indiana gets from this, even more than what they've already been getting?
This will be one of the biggest jumps in the history of college football recruiting from one year to the next. Like Indiana has, I'm a grad and I'm familiar with the school and all that. They've always had facilities, which a lot of people didn't know, but they sucked. Now they've got facilities and a real coach, and they've got deep pockets. If they get Hoover especially, and that kind of keeps the train rolling with quarterback, anything's possible, because nobody, and I'm sure Spencer has talked about this a bunch on his show, evaluates the portal better than Indiana. It's not even close. Like, you can even take out the James Madison kids if you want. They knew about that. That was free, low-hanging fruit. Okay. But what about all the other guys? Toledo, MAC kids, FCS kids. I said a few times going through the list, I literally said to myself, who the hell is that? And the guy would end up playing. Like, literally.
Yeah.
And they're making plays. So hopefully they can turn that into better recruiting out of the high school ranks, because you're only going to hit on the portal so often, no matter what, especially like it's been insane. But they've got to continue just inch their way up with that. And if you keep hitting a quarterback at the portal, you could be a contender again next year. And obviously Mendoza is going to turn pro after this year, in case anybody's wondering. Like, that's lock, stock,
We don't know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I want one of your classic. Yeah, there it is. Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. Keep dreaming there. Keep dreaming there. Go see.
Yeah.
Dante Moore was very smart today. Won the game, but did not elevate his NFL draft stock in the same way. That's four-dimensional chess. Maybe that's what Dan Lanning was doing all along. He didn't want the offense to shine because he doesn't want Dante to leave. He wants him to come back for 26. To your point on the portal, Brian, they brought in 23 transfers this year. Hey, Goins, you're the Hoosiers guy. Why don't you tell me if any of these guys, I'll just pick a few out at complete and total random here if any of them worked out. Fernando Mendoza.
Who?
That went pretty well. Let's see. Pat Coogan. Pat
Pat
Coogan.
One of the best players in America. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. What about is it Kellen Wyatt? Kellen Wyatt. Yeah. Stephen Daly. Yeah. That's pretty.
And he didn't even play. He's injured. And Indiana
right.
still dominated the defensive line,
which is pretty wild. Roman Hemby. Or is it Hemby or Hemby?
Believe he came from Maryland. Yeah, him.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And once upon a time, was Elijah Surratt not a transfer? Once upon a time,
He was James Madison.
He was a James Madison guy.
Madison guy. Yeah, I mean the talent evaluation is incredible. The development of guys that do not have a lot of stars next to their name is insane. And I think Indiana is the best example of something that bothers a lot of SEC folks. I am 100% in the camp. Stars matter. They absolutely matter. Please do not for a single second tell me that they are everything, because they are simply not. And you need look no further than the Indiana Hoosiers to see that that's the case. Their transfer portal class wasn't even ranked that high. It was the number 25 class. It's a good unit. And they're the best team in college football. The scheme that Cignetti and Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator, I don't know where they found that guy, but he is so smart.
And he ain't going anywhere.
Well, he will after 2026, but keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. But the scheme they roll out on a week-to-week basis, it feels like they have just got the answers for everything that another team wants to do. I mean, Brian, line up the NFL talent, the NFL draft talent, right? Which is another one of those pro SEC arguments. They've got more guys that are going to get drafted. It can definitely help you. I think it gives you a better chance to do it. But guess what? Ohio State's got more guys that are going to get drafted than Miami. Alabama's got more guys that are going to get drafted than Indiana. If you've got the right coaching staff and game plan on a given day, you can overcome that stuff. You really can. And I think we're seeing that more and more in these big games because Ohio State and Alabama are out and they lost by double digits. The Ohio State game was closer than that, but they never led. They trailed the entire game.
Yeah.
So I think
coaching matters, right? Coaching
Yes.
matters. Execution matters. Game planning matters. You can't just roll out there and expect to win just because you have more talent. And this is a good thing for college football. It's a good thing. Yes, I'm the Indiana guy and I love it for IU. This is a good thing, a good sign for college football, that it can be fixed, that it's not just pay to win, right? I talk about pay to compete. You can pay and have the best roster. Doesn't mean you're going to win football games. Look at, like you said, Ohio State, Alabama, these teams who are now out. You still have to do things the right way. And I also want to speak on something, too, that I think I know was shoved down my throat from Alabama people leading into this game was that, Alabama's been there before. It's big stage. Alabama's won big games all the time. They're not scared. They're not worried. They'll win this. It's Alabama. And I said, guess what? That's a completely different era of Alabama football. That's a completely different era of college football. And they were like, Indiana's never been there. They're not going to know what to do. It's like, it's a completely different team. It was one of the dumbest arguments I've heard. And I said, we'll see. And you saw it today. This was a completely different era of football played on the first day of 2026 than what we saw in 2012 with Alabama steamrolling people.
There's a play that's a microcosm of what you're talking about, Goins. First half, 4th and 1. Incredible work by the broadcast crew.
Yeah.
Because they run the punt. Ty Simpson's on the field. They're trying to draw him offside. Cut to Kurt Cignetti. Just unimpressed with the whole thing. And then his defense makes a stop. And Herbstreit, as he often does, broke down that 4th and 1 play very well. Every single one of those guys is so well coached and they know their assignments so well. And they see Bernard come in motion and they know Bama loves to go to the perimeter in these sorts of spots. And they just they just hold, shed, go make a play. It's just such perfect teach tape for every position. It's not one group. Like, what's the dominant unit for Indiana? I guess the offensive line a little bit, but I just feel like it's any group can carry Indiana through stretches of the game.
Yeah. Brian?
Like watching Indiana just run generic gap plays and outside zone and stuff like split zone, just generic. And then Alabama couldn't do anything to run the ball. The difference was like, I cover a high school more than anything else. It reminds me of one of the games where I go watch St. Thomas Aquinas or IMG or something. And I know going to the game, it's not really a game. I'm there to scout because it's going to be an annihilation. But it was Bama being annihilated. I've never covered that in my entire life. When was the last time Bama got beat by 30? We need to look at, like, seriously, by 30.
It would have been the 2018 national championship. Trevor Lawrence gave them what I called the Bama beatdown, because I'd never seen Alabama lose like that. That game was 44-16, the final. This was a larger margin of defeat than that, and Alabama scored a touchdown in that game, and they didn't do that. in this one. I would think that's the last time they lost a game by around 30 points.
Yeah, before that, it's probably pre-Nick. I would imagine. That's 2006.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
So, by the way, for anybody that really needs a little extra entertainment, head over to your favorite Alabama message board. Just saying. So,
Brian is having a great time. Brian is having a fantastic time.
Yeah, I don't think the Crimson Tide fans are having a grand and glorious time. I tell you what.
We are, though.
Yes, I imagine you are going. How grateful do you think Michigan fans feel right now to have Kyle Whittingham instead of Kalen DeBoer?
That is a great. I told people, I said they don't want this guy. Did you see the tweet that I tagged you in?
Yep. I saw that, and I think that winning at Oklahoma might very well have prevented that from happening. I was told in the middle of that search before the Oklahoma game that Michigan felt internally like they were going to get either Kalen DeBoer or Kenny Dillingham, and Dillingham signed the extension, and then all of a sudden DeBoer was like the guy, but then he won. And so he's still preparing, so they can't announce. And I think Michigan kind of had to move on. And look, Kyle Whittingham's a great coach. He was never able to get Utah into a college football playoff, but I think he can get Michigan to a college football playoff. And I know DeBoer can get you there, but man, he just feels like he had that magical run for a couple of years at Washington. And since then, back-to-back 4 lost seasons.
And it seemed like, too, with Alabama fans and Kalen DeBoer, they were starting to really not like him. And then he rattled off a couple of wins. And then it was like, all right, well, we'll see. And then he beat Oklahoma. I was like, oh, okay, cool, we're fine. And then there's this. This wasn't a field goal loss. This wasn't a game-winning drive by Mendoza. This was Indiana spanking you for 4 quarters and showing it in every single way. This might be enough for them to be completely out on him and have little to no support in Tuscaloosa to start next
Winning
year.
a road playoff game has to buy you a lot of equity, even if it was against a non-national title contender in Oklahoma. I think from an administrative standpoint, for some fans, no. They'll look and say this result is unacceptable, which for Alabama, of course, it absolutely is. I think that if this had happened against Indiana in the first round, it's a different conversation than it happening in the quarterfinal. Because if you took away the Scarlet A and Kalen DeBoer's name and you said, we've brought in a head coach who was taking over for the greatest coach in the history of the sport, and he progressed from year 1 to year 2, and he won a road playoff game in his second year. That's not if you just go blind resume there, that's not trending towards being fired. It's because it's Alabama that it's different. But Josh Pate, I think, has made this point very well. Alabama fans are now learning what it's like to be a normal college football fan, which is this stuff is hard. And there are ups and downs, and you don't get to just be national title or bust every season. And I think that's maybe something that certain Crimson Tide fans are either struggling to accept or starting to accept because of this outcome. Am I nuts, Brian?
That's very well said. But Jacob and I know what it's like to live in the state of Alabama. You only get bits and pieces from us.
Yeah, it's true.
From our commentary.
I've heard my fair share of stories, but you're correct.
Yeah,
I just think they carried over. Yeah. They just carried over unrealistic expectations from one regime to the other. I don't understand it. And again, to bring it back to what brought this conversation up, it was the idea that I was told all week by Alabama people that they were just going to will their way to win because they had the A on the jersey, right? And that they were the Crimson Tide. They've been here before. But that doesn't roll anymore. And Indiana debunked that, which is my whole point to this conversation. And I think the Hoosiers deserve a ton of credit for that, in my opinion. And so now we know, right, given we got one more game coming up in the playoff, it's going to kick off literally in like 10 or 15 minutes. It is Ole Miss and Georgia, but we know one of the semifinal matchups. It is Indiana and it's Oregon in a rematch.
Can I, but before we jump to that, can I just point this out?
Sure.
John Brown down there left a comment, NIL leveled the playing field. I think there is something to that. And I have heard this conversation, and I've had this conversation on my show a lot about NIL and how that's, leveled the playing field a little bit. And, well, the 12-team playoff, it's provided more access and more teams feel like they can get there and they can sell that to kids. And I'm like, okay, that's a component. I don't think either one of those things is as impactful leveling out the sport at the top in college football as the transfer portal. I don't even think it's close. I think if NIL was not legalized and you expanded to 12 teams and the transfer portal was still there, I think you would be in about the same spot. Because look at what Indiana's done. To your point earlier, Brian, they're just knocking it out of the park with these portal classes and additions. But you can't do that. How is Vanderbilt any good? Vanderbilt's a 10-win team. How? Diego Pavia. How do you get there? The portal. Like the impact of the portal. I know that a lot of people like to dog on it. It opens on Friday, and Brian might not leave his computer for the next 10 days. There's going to be so many players to talk about, but I understand the negatives. I just cannot get past the fundamental good it's brought to the sport, which is at the top. It's so much harder to build a team that nobody can touch. The SEC champion last year in the playoff, manhandled by Notre Dame. The SEC runner-up just got manhandled by Indiana. That didn't happen before. And you
can't build super teams anymore. You can't build them.
Exactly.
We don't have the depth that those teams had.
And other teams can find players from other schools that wouldn't otherwise be there who can help them, who get overlooked. I mean, look at a guy like Cam Ward. Cam Ward was, Brian, refresh my memory here. How many stars did Cam Ward have next to his name coming out of high school? 0. He had 0 stars, and he almost led Miami to the playoff last year. And yes, to the point of the comment that you just had up on the screen, yes, NIL plays a part in the portal. I get that.
Like this, I think.
Yes, they certainly can. There was also a report when Dylan Thieneman transferred to Oregon in the offseason that he had bigger NIL offers from SEC schools. I didn't report this. This was somebody else who was confident in the reporting, so make of that what you will. But he said that Thieneman had bigger offers but wanted to go to Oregon. And certainly, I can assure you, Dylan Thieneman's well compensated to be the starting safety for the Ducks, without question. But anyway, end of rant. We can talk about the Oregon angle now.
But your point being that Indiana is now good and relevant and dominating because of the new factors of college football. So yes, Indiana has to agree. They have to.
Indiana and Vanderbilt are good, are legitimately good teams. They have won 24 games in this season, the two of them combined. Get a time machine, grab Doc, get in the, what's the car, DeLorean, rev it to a certain speed, go back to 2019 and tell that to somebody. Indiana and Vanderbilt going to win 24 games in a conference championship combined in the same season. It would have felt impossible, and here we are.
They would have. It would also have felt impossible for Indiana and Oregon to meet in a college football playoff semifinal for now what will be our 4th rematch of the college football playoff. Is that right? Our 4th now that we will have seen, because 2 in the first round.
Georgia Ole Miss is a rematch.
Bama Oklahoma was a rematch. And
Tulane Ole Miss was a rematch.
So our 4th now rematch of the college football playoff will be the Oregon Ducks and the Indiana Hoosiers. And Brian, this is when you dipped out for a second. We talked about our friends at FanDuel. The opening line was Indiana 4.5. Spencer nailed it right on the head. That's already moved. It's already moved.
Already moved? Where?
In the favor of the Ducks. It is now Indiana 3.5.
Oh, that was quick.
According to our friends at FanDuel.
Oh my, it did.
Just early thoughts here, gentlemen, as we kind of wrap up our live show. Again, we're broadcasting all over the place. We appreciate people joining us on the YouTube stream. But early thoughts on an Indiana-Oregon rematch. This one taking place in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Of course, Indiana went to Autzen, beat Oregon by 10 in the last game. Spencer, we'll start with you. for no particular reason. If you have any specific insight or additional insight on the Ducks, you can choose to use that or not if you would like.
Yeah, I heard this really good Oregon podcast that I was listening to in the lead up to the Texas Tech game, and he was giving all sorts of great insights. I think that guy knows his stuff. So I'll just go off of that information. It is definitely difficult to beat a team that's really good twice in the same season. Brian couldn't handle it. It is really hard. It has also happened to the Ducks in Dan Lanning's tenure. It happened 2 years ago to arch rival Washington, no less. And I don't think that Washington team was as good as this Indiana team. Both are elite, just to be clear. Both 13-0 conference champions that won a playoff game. And I think that what Oregon has to be able to do, I've got a lot of faith in Oregon's defense. It was not the reason they lost. I know people are going to look at 30 points, but I don't have enough time on this show to explain why that wasn't the case. But Oregon's defense was not the problem against Indiana, and Oregon's offense was. And I think that if the Ducks offense comes out with the same level of execution against an elite defense that they had against Texas Tech, Indiana will win and cover. If Oregon can find a way to be more effective, there is absolutely a world in which Oregon wins the game, and I would feel pretty solid about it. I just have to see Oregon get past a defense of this caliber, because when you look at what even Washington did to them a little bit, that doesn't have the same level of talent, especially up front. They forced Oregon into a bunch of field goals. And then Texas Tech, let them move down the field, and then Oregon couldn't punch it in the end zone. And against Indiana, Oregon moved it down the field, couldn't get it into the end zone. I don't think you can afford that here. I don't think you can ask your defense to pitch another shutout. I don't think that's going to happen against Indiana. But, yeah, I mean, from a talent standpoint, Oregon's got enough to win. The question will be whether the coaching staff can make the right sorts of adjustments.
Indiana by double digits.
Oh, gosh. Listen. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, my
man, Brian.
I'm just being honest.
Why do you think that, though? For real, why do you think that?
I was very disappointed with Oregon's offensive line against Tech.
Yeah, it was bad.
If they're even remotely to that level against Indiana, they're getting smoked. I don't think they'll play that bad again.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, and I don't think I disagree with that. I think Texas Tech actually has a better front four than Indiana does.
They do.
And I mean, frankly, Tech's front seven is as good as any in college football that I've seen this year. Oregon's offensive line should have played better than that, especially in the run game. I think in the pass game, it was a lot closer to being a wash than the first quarter would have led you to believe. Because early on, Romello Height and especially David Bailey, holy crap. That guy is so good at football. He was single-handedly wrecking Oregon's offensive game plan in certain moments. As the game went on, though, Dante Moore was not under consistent duress, and Oregon was actually able to move the ball up and down the field through the air. But to your point, Brian, you hit the nail on the head. You can't run the ball like they did in that game. They are fortunate that Texas Tech's offense was rusty and that Oregon's defense played lights out for 4 quarters, and Brandon Finney's a monster. All of that is good and fine. But the way that they played in the run game was incredibly disappointing. And yes, Texas Tech, best run defense in the country. Oregon goes for about 230-ish per game on the ground, and Texas Tech holds opponents to under 70. And they held Oregon under 70. And that's a credit to Texas Tech, but also does raise my concern level a bit with regards to Oregon. I thought they were going to go for maybe 130, 140 on the ground. I did not think they were going to gash them the way they have a lot of teams this year. But interestingly enough, that was one of the things coming out of the Indiana game from earlier this season that kind of made a lot of Oregon folks frustrated. Like, man, why'd they get away from the running game? It was working so well. They went up and down the field. How do you have 3 guys averaging over 5 yards a carry with at least 5 carries, and you've got 13 points as an offense? Because one of the touchdowns was a pick 6.
Yep.
There was a disconnect there. So, yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that all plays out.
I'll say this, right? A lot of people, especially in the Indiana people, are going to say, well, we did it once. We did it again. If we can do it on the road, we can do it neutral site, right? it seems on paper that all the factors and aspects here are easier, but I think Indiana and Oregon are both playing different football than they were then, right? I think there's multiple different things that have changed, injuries or style or whatever the case may be. This will be a fascinating game. And clearly the betting line is saying so with our friends at FanDuel still sitting at 3.5 for Indiana right now. I do feel that Indiana can win in more ways than Oregon can. I just feel confident in that. I've seen Indiana do it.
See, that was one of the reasons I liked Oregon against Tech is they can win any type of football game.
Yeah, I guess to that, then I'll say Indiana's able to stop a lot of those ways defensively, but I really do think this could be a last team to have the football wins the game type of matchup between Indiana and Oregon. I think Indiana's both of their offensive and defensive line showed today they're some of the best units in the country. Oregon clearly has that as well. Two quarterbacks who are just phenomenal. They're going to be playing long time on Sundays. Who makes a play? Who steps up? Who has another pick six like that? Who forces a fumble like Indiana did today? I think that'll be the difference when Indiana and Oregon meet a week from tomorrow in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl. It's Indiana and it's Oregon because I know, weird, right? Yeah. Happy New Year. We didn't even say that. Happy New Year, everybody.
New Year's is a fake made-up holiday. It's an excuse for people to drink and get fitness goals.
I mean, it's a new year.
It is. If you want to have fitness goals, you shouldn't need it. You shouldn't need the freaking date changing in order to do that. Like, just start going to the gym.
I didn't know you
I hate New Year's. If you can't tell, I hate New Year's, man.
I didn't know that.
I can't stand it. It's nothing. It's a nothing holiday.
I'm gonna send you a card next year. I'm gonna send you a card in the mail.
I'm gonna light it on fire on video. I'm gonna light it on fire. Like, this is what I think of your New Year's card.
Gosh, well, all right. I guess you learn something new every day. We also learned that Indiana's pretty darn good at football. We learned that they are 35 points better than Alabama today in the Rose Bowl. Indiana wins 38.
Alabama had 203 yards of offense.
Indiana ran for 215. Ran for 215. They know they didn't have to show up, and they still would have won. Not really, incredible. But you get what I mean. Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast, part of our Locked On Podcast Network. Go check him out. Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football. He's got another show, but you can worry about that later. Also a hater of New Year's. So if you didn't know that, now you do. And I'm
that's my Twitter bio.
Please do it. Add it to your resume if you end up, looking for a new job. Hater of New Year's. I'm sure they'll hire you on the spot.
Yeah.
Maybe don't. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. We appreciate you being here. We'll be back on all of our shows coming up tomorrow for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and we'll talk to you.